The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you, listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys, they let us think that we're big boys, they let us make a lot of noise, but we ain't rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghost. It's scaring them.
All right, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Okay! Game on!
Game on!
Game on!
The password is...
All right.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Love you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, just please take your seat on my way. We're with you. It's clear for pickup. Start. 2, 1. Boost ignition and lift off.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Space Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, and it's good to have you along for the ride wherever we are on this great planet we like to call Earth. We are live right here on Tuesday, March 21st, Wednesday, and Behind the Music. And we want to thank him for being a part of this show because what he brings to us is one great sounding Radio Show. Make sure you go out and buy Art of Anarchy or any Bumblefoot albums because he just rocks us so well. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter. You can also follow me on Facebook. That is Space Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Space Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, we have a plethora of features for you, and we'll get into that in just a moment. You can also tune us in on TuneIn, download this show on iTunes. We're on radioguide.fm, TalkStream Live, and on Stitcher. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. You can also head on over to patreon.com. We have some really cool offers there for as low as $1 a month. And let's make sure you do that because we want to keep growing this show. With your help, we will be able to do that. If you want to take part in this show, we do not take phone calls, but we do take questions from our chat room. So you either got to go to spacedoutradio.com, listen in there, and join the chat room as well. You could go over to Spreaker, Revolution Radio, the UPRN chat room, or if you are a member of the SOR Space Travelers Club, you can hit up the room on Facebook as well. Remember, if you want to follow us on Twitter, use the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. I will get to your questions and comments in there as well, so make sure you are as active as I am tonight. If you head to our website, you could join the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. With that, you get some really cool swag that we have waiting for you and some other offers. You can also check out the Encounter online, courtesy of our news editors, Eric Markham and Everett Threemer, bringing some quality news back into the paranormal. You can check out my latest blog in there as well. If you've had a sighting you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Mike Schmidt, our intrepid researcher, wants to hear your story. We are live on terrestrial radio out of WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia. That's where they film the ever-popular Walking Dead. We are also live in New Orleans on 107.7 FM on the United Public Radio Network, and their listeners from over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. We're also live on Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And Revolution Radio. The Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Tonight we'll get into the paranormal, the horror, and the movie industry as one of our famous guests, Ian Holt, is back on the air with us. He's got good hair as well when he spikes it up like Giorgio Tsoukalos. Still got that picture, Ian. I will bribe you with that one day. Ian, however, is best known for writing the sequel to Bram Stoker's Dracula, the novel. A horror fan since childhood, Ian has had a fascination with entertainment, writing, and the entire paranormal and horror genre. The unknown is what keeps him going, whether it's filming his latest movie called Unhinged, with Mickey Rourke as the main character, or sitting down and talking with us about the paranormal. Ian, a New York native, has some wild and crazy stories that surround Hollywood and the dark side that happens behind the scenes. So what's real? What's not? The paranormal is creative when it comes to movies and books, but in person, well, around here, we know what the scene is all about. So tonight we take a look at the paranormal from a different perspective, from behind the lens of a Hollywood camera. We welcome in Ian Holt to Spaced Out Radio, filling in for our guest, Terry Ross, that was caught in her travels yesterday, but Ian's stepping up, and he's also going to be on exactly 2 weeks from now to talk more about his movies that he is creating this summer. Ian, welcome back.
Thanks, Dave. It's good to be back. It was a nice surprise to get to fill in. Gives me something to do late at night when my half vampire side comes in and I can't fall asleep till sunrise.
I know that feeling all too well, and you know what? It was rare because tonight was one of those nights I actually had a nap before the show. You know, I actually did.
You got more energy than I do.
I do. I do have some energy, you know, so I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. So what's new, my friends, since the last time you talked to us?
Well, first I got to give a shout-out to our boy Ryan O'Neill out there at Rock the Key and his radio station out there. He's just want to say hi to my buddy. I have been in heavy pre-production, working my little booty off, trying to make everyone out there a really scary freaking movie. That's my main goal right now.
You know what? And I want to thank Ryan as well. Ryan is the man behind WQEE, and we can thank Ian for setting us up with WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, because, Ryan was looking for a nighttime show. He was thinking of going with the other guy, and Ian was like, hold on a second here. Hit the brakes, everyone. You got to listen to Spaced Out Radio. They're up and coming. They're moving. And so Ryan gave us a shot. Next thing you know, boom. Ian, we got the deal done thanks to you. So I do really appreciate you doing that for us, man.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I was glad I could help. And, everyone out there at my Rock the Key, check out Ryan's morning show. I mean, I come from morning radio out in New York, and I tell you, Ryan does a great morning show. So if you could pick up Rock the Key, definitely check out Ryan's morning show. He does a great show, him and his wife.
Absolutely. And Ryan, a recent transplant from Las Vegas, where he's pretty well known in the rock scene around there, and, trying to help out his friends in this opportunity down in Georgia to get things going. We want to wish him all the best as well, because radio, whether you're on online or whether you are on terrestrial, Ian, and you've done both, it is a tight-knit family. It's something that you want to wish the best to absolutely everybody. You want to make sure that everybody is in the game. Everybody is working hard towards the same goal, because radio on a corporate level isn't the same as what it used to be when you were on the air in New York or I was on the air in Vancouver.
No, it's now we all suffer together. So, we all support each other like a 12-step program. It's radio has changed, man. It's a hard, unless you're a political or a sports show, or Howard Stern, it's kind of hard these days. There's just not much variety. There's not much risk or chance or excitement in it. I mean, when I was doing radio, I used to think about what it must have been like in the days of Orson Welles, where you would get to do like live radio dramas and stuff. Can you imagine that? Live soap operas on radio and all that? The Shadow and all of those shows, even the Abbott Costello show. I mean, it was what a time that must have been.
Oh, incredibly! Incredibly.
There's something about radio that's different from television or movies because it's so immediate. When we make a movie, we spend a year prepping it. A year, in pre-production and shooting and editing and all that, and then another 6-7 months until it's sees the light of day. Television's a little quicker, but radio is like you write the script, you're on the radio, and it's so immediate. It's almost like theater, and it's a dying art form.
And it's too bad, too, because there are so many talented people in radio, and I have no problem taking a pot shot at all these corporations that have taken over radio stations, because what they've done is they've taken program directors out of the jobs that they're supposed to be doing and running radio shows, and they've filled them in with accountants and lawyers and people who have absolutely no broadcasting background, and it's really become about the shareholders instead of the product that's online. I mean, face it.
Well, I mean, look at Warner Brothers. You have a business executive CEO running that doesn't know anything about comic books or anything about movies. He's running Warner Brothers, and he's making corporate decisions like, we'll hire Zack Snyder because his 300 was good. It's not about I want to stay true to the comic book. The guy never read the comic book. I mean, one of my favorite video games was Tomb Raider, and when I heard the movie was being made, I was so excited. And I saw an article on Entertainment Weekly with Simon West, who was writing and directing it. And the guy doing the interview says to Simon, I know you're filming at Angkor Wat. The first game took place at Angkor Wat. Are you using this, basically the script for the first movie on the first game? And Simon's answer was, I didn't know that. So Angkor Wat was in the video game? And I knew the movie was going to be shit from then on. I was like, uh-oh. And that's the corporate, hiring the director because he had the general's daughter or whatever it was. That was a hit. So he's the hot guy at the moment with the hot hand. So we'll hire him. It doesn't matter if he's right for the job. I mean, everyone says, Kevin Smith's Superman was probably the best Superman script ever written, but it wasn't made because, well, he does, Clerks and little movies. We can't really use him for Superman. That's the mentality there. Back in the old days in Hollywood, like the Jack Warners and these guys, they were entertainers and businessmen. Today, everything's, like you said, is about the shareholder and, the quarterly numbers. And, even Ben Affleck just recently, he dropped out of directing because he had said a number of times the script for the new Batman was terrible and he needed more time. But they have to make their release date because there are 10 other big corporate movies that are coming out at that time, including the Marvel films. And, the difference between Marvel and everyone else is they write their scripts years in advance and base it off a Bible that's based off the comic book because the guys that run the comic book company are running the studio. Disney just releases them. Disney doesn't have anything to do with the creative of the films. It's Marvel Studios that does it. Warner Brothers, DC has nothing to do with it, and Warner's runs everything. So you have a bunch of corporate people creating, comic books, and they go, well, the director says, well, this is my vision. No, we don't want your vision. We've been buying DC Comics for, our whole lives. We want the DC vision. We don't care what Zack Snyder thinks. We care what DC thinks. And that's really the problem. And, Hollywood has become so corporate that used to be that if you made a good movie, you'd move up into the executive branch. No more. They're now recruiting kids out of Harvard and Yale Business School. What does Harvard and Yale Business School know anything about making movies?
I hear you. The same thing is with radio. We've seen radio go from having every little market and major market having people on the air 24/7, where the only time usually, unless you're in talk radio somewhere, the only time real radio is live anymore is in the morning show and in the afternoon drive. The rest of it is all pre-recorded. When you hear those human voices, they are called voice tracking. It's real people doing it, but they've taken a job where a person used to make a decent living, $50,000, $60,000, maybe $70,000 a year, and they've replaced them with $9 an hour people or whatever your local minimum wage is to bring you the music of the night. And that's why, if you want to learn, here's a little radio trick. If you want to learn if it's voice tracked or not, you will never hear the time. You'll hear the weather, but you will never hear what time it is unless it's at the top of the hour when they've timed out on their commercials. But you'll never hear, hey, it's 10:15 on this Saturday night. Welcome to whatever the show is called. You won't get that anymore. It's just not there.
Well, I'll tell you a little secret from the old days. We were doing the morning show on Power 105 in New York. Dre and I and our good friend Keith Shockley from Public Enemy and the Bomb Squad found out that they were running one of these electronic tracks, in the middle of the night, Friday into Saturday. So since we had access with our cards to the building any time of the day or night, we just went in a Friday night, turned off the track, and decided to do a live show. And actually, bringing our own advertisers and took over the computers and everything. It was like pirate radio on Power 105. And Dre was actually DJing a mix of music from, going back to the 60s right up through the early 2000s. Total mixing. The show took off. We had live callers in, and we had this thing called the hookup, where we'd get girls to call in from a club at like midnight, guys to call in from a club that was single, and we'd have them meet and call in and see if they got along. We'd pick we'd ask them questions to see who hooked up, and the thing took off like crazy. We actually had it syndicated, and we were on the air for almost a year before Power 105 caught on to what we were doing. And because they couldn't figure out why the ratings in the middle of the night had tripled. and then they come to us and they get mad at us for pirating. I said, but we doubled the ratings. You know, we're bringing in money here. We could make a real show in the middle of the night. And they canceled it. They had to stop, cease and desist. And I'm like, I don't understand why. Because they didn't want it to be a success. Because then they'd have to fill in the other time slots. Because the audience would be, well, if you have the electronic track, except for these 3 hours, and these 3 hours are doubling it, well, we got to spend more money. And they didn't want to spend the budget. So they shut us down.
You got that right. You got that right. We used to, I worked for one news director in Vancouver. One of the saltiest human beings I've ever met in my life, and I've never met a more me type of butt kisser when it came to the executive suits. And anyways, like this is the kind of guy where he would one time he was getting ready to fire our traffic girl. Okay. He stayed at the station until 1:30 in the morning so he could fire her after her shift at 1:30 in the morning. Who does that? You know what? An inhumane person does that. And that's what this was. So after that, I snuck past the security cameras in the lunchroom, and I actually posted on our walls, because we had a bunch of posting areas, you know, for other positions within the corporation or whatever was there, announcements at our station, and I actually crossed out one of them with local news it had on there for our area, and I actually put hirings and firings on there. You know, because every week someone was getting canned, and it was terrible. Terrible way to live.
I mean, when we look, I'll tell you two stories that, you know, personify what you're dealing with. When your MTV Rap started, it was a weekday show with a weekend show with Fab Five Freddy, and they decided, you know, Ted Demme and Peter Doherty decided they wanted to do a weekday show, and no one thought it was going to work. That there wasn't enough interest in hip-hop, you know, that it was a fad, that hip-hop wasn't going to last. And we start doing the show, and MTV programs everything. You get a list of what you got to play. No one sent us a list. So because, you know, most of the hip-hop videos at the time were cheaply made anyway. So they would just let us play whatever we wanted. And, you know, there were certain restrictions about content and all of that. But, you know, as things go, Keith Shockley of Public Enemy was at a DJ convention in L.A., and a friend of his hands him a cassette. And he says, you got to listen to these guys. They're incredible. And it turns out it's NWA. And he hears it, and he comes back to New York, and he gives it to T Money, who's one of the hosts with Dre and Ed on Yo MTV Raps. And T hears it and says, I've never heard anything like this. You know, it was called reality rap. Only Ice-T was called gangster rap because he was a real gangster. So T plays it for Dre and Ed. We love it. We all love it, and we call up the record company. It's a little record company. Like if you see the movie, they did like the California Raisins, and they said, "Oh yeah, we sent the video in, but we never heard back from MTV." So thus begins like this week-long search. For because we were all like "F the Police" was the song we thought you wanted. And they told us they sent the title track straight out of Compton, and there was no video for "F the Police." So we go find this cabinet hidden away at the MTV back room, all the do not play videos that were too cheaply made or too controversial or just they thought were crap. And in that pile, we find a cassette for Straight Out of Compton. And we play that on the air, and you know, could get edits to the bad language, but we played it on the air, and Yo MTV Raps goes from the bottom of the barrel to the number one show on MTV, and before we know it, we're playing all this now coined gangster rap because that's what the record companies want to call it, where you know it was called reality rap, but they thought gangster rap was more sellable, and of course more controversial. And we're playing all this stuff coming out of L.A., you know, and the ratings are going through the roof. And suddenly we replace Ricky Rackman and the Headbangers Ball in the afternoons, you know, when the kids come home from school. And this is like my first couple of weeks there. This all happened. And what's the amazing thing is, the minute these records started selling, you got to realize these were all on independent labels. The main record companies didn't own any of it. So they called MTV and freaked out. We put all our advertising, we give you all our acts and free access to them and whatever we need, we do all the commercials, and you're putting this independent stuff on? No way. And MTV slammed down on us like an anvil and made us play only hip-hop bands and R&B bands that had videos that were connected to the record labels. And the record labels started buying up all the independents, and the big labels, the big record companies like, MCA and all that, didn't want to spend the money. So they didn't want to have groups, they didn't want to pay enough people, so they wanted a single guy, and they wanted a white guy, because they felt the big oral audience is a white audience. And they prefabricated Vanilla Ice and forced him into constant rotation on our show. And it was a catchy little tune, Ice Ice Baby, but we were forced to play it over and over and over in the rotation. And it was just the record labels, whatever band was sold. The best thing that happened was when, Def Jam was sold to Universal, because then we could play all the Def Jam artists. I mean, Dre and Ed was signed as original. Dr. Dre was signed, and T was signed as original concept on Def Jam, and we couldn't play it because they were an independent label for a time. That's the way it goes. When we were at the morning show, when the morning show took off, the first thing that happened was they told Dre, "You're not DJing anymore," and they brought in a guy with a playlist who would play exactly what the record companies wanted him to play. And who says Paolo was dead?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at MTV there for a couple of seconds. They were absolutely rejecting Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. And finally, I believe it was Geffen Records said, "Look, I want you to play our video." So they agreed to play it at like 4 o'clock in the morning on like a Sunday night, where they knew nobody would be listening. And their phone lines actually crashed back then, when you could do that, because everybody wanted them to replay it again. And that's how Appetite for Destruction took off in 1988, even though it was recorded in 1987. That's part of that useless information I have in my head about GNR. But, that's the way it works, though, with these music companies, and it works in Hollywood. But what do? There's nothing we can do. The only thing you can do is push hard to give them something that isn't there, something that's going to bring in the people. And Ian, as well as I do, sometimes even though you bring in the people, it still doesn't impress the suits.
No, it doesn't, because they have the way the record companies worked then. It's not like today where you pay for studio time and then you get royalties on the record, because there are no more advances, because we don't sell 20 million records anymore. We sell 8 million records, and it's like the greatest thing ever. Back then they would pay like $30-40 million to artists. I mean, you'd hear about Janet Jackson getting $86 million and owning 10 records. And they needed to promote those records because they're already paid for. They've already made.
I think we got a little bit of a Skype issue with Ian here. I'm going to just hang up on Ian and call him right back. Oh, Ian, are you there?
I'm there. I'm here. Can you
all right. Yeah, we kind of blanked out there for a quick second. Well, about 10 seconds.
Oh, I don't know what that was. It could be I'm down by the water here. The wind is really crazy because I live on the beach in Long Beach on Long Island. So sometimes the wind if it's really windy, it gets a little hairy. But I don't know where I left off, but they pay a lot of money for 10 records in advance for someone like Janet Jackson, and the record companies got to recoup that money plus all the advertising and everything. So an $80 million contract for 10 records turns into $150 million when you add in the advertising before the artist sees a royalty, and the record company makes back 120% or 130% of that advance plus the advertising before the artist sees a royalty. So they're in the hole. So they're forcing you to play those records and make them a hit, whether they're good or not. They don't care. You know, you have to play that. And the only way they can do that is by controlling the playlists at the radio stations, and they control those playlists by giving access to the artists. You know, we'll let you talk to Janet, or we'll let you interview Janet, or Janet will show up at your event, you know, but you've got to play a record in constant rotation. You know, that's what goes on behind the scenes. That's why, you know, a lot of songs that we hear that we don't like and they're constantly being played and we think it's crap is because the record company took a gamble and paid them in advance to keep them at the label and control their music for the next 10 years.
How does Hollywood tie into all of this? And the reason why I ask that is, you know, it gets into movies as well, and we touched on that a few minutes ago, and you have a brand new movie that's going to be filming. It's already getting a lot of press out there, called Unhinged, and you will be having your main star, who happens to be a good friend of yours, Mickey Rourke, actually being the lead character in this. So before we get into Unhinged, how does Hollywood tie in with all this political animosity and whether or not they shoot a film or whether it stays independent or not?
Hollywood, here's what happens in Hollywood, and people that come in, and I did the same thing. I'm just as guilty. You know, we get out of college, we have our creative writing degree and our Bachelor of Fine Arts. You know, we got our A's, and I went to NYU, it's a School of the Arts, and I think I'm so cool, and I'm going to write the great screenplay. You know, the great original screenplay, they're going to buy it, and it's going to be made into a movie. The problem is you've got a million other people that went to every other college and didn't go to college and are in high school and or 50 years old and writing about their life, and everyone's got a story, and everyone thinks it's the greatest movie ever written. The problem with Hollywood is there's a system there where there are readers. When you start at the studio, you start as a reader, and you get paid by the script you read. If you give it a good review, you pass it up to the development person, and you got a shot at being an associate producer, co-producer, and moving up in the company if the movie is made and it's a hit. Problem is, if it's not, you could lose your job and you're done. So most people rather just say everything stinks than put their job on the line for a script, because that way they keep getting paid. No one wants to risk anything. Because every time you take a development person takes it to the vice president of production to want to make a movie on a script he finds, you know, no one knows what's going to sell. The movie that's supposed to bomb becomes a huge hit, like, you know, Rocky. Who knew, right? It was a little movie that nobody wanted to make. You know, they were lucky if they made it for like $1 million, hoping they'd make their money back. And $1 million in '76 was a lot of money. Turned into the biggest hit of the year. Who knew? No one can tell when you read these things, because there's a million things that have to go right for a movie to work. It's a collaborative effort. It's not one person really in control. You can have the best director in the world, but, you know, look at Jaws. You know, the head of the studio was married to Brenda Harrison or something like that, who played Nova in Planet of the Apes. Richard Zanuck was married to the woman who played Brody's wife in the movie, and both of them cast their wives as Brody's wife, and the movie almost didn't happen over an argument between the head of the studio. It didn't matter if the script was good. The script was supposed to be a monster movie. The shark didn't work, so they decided to use music instead. And that became scarier and one of the greatest movies of all time. And it was a complete and total accident because the shark didn't work. So we never, and they had to deal with the wife situation. So, you know, they picked the right one because Brenda Harrison can't act at all. But she's gorgeous. Nova was gorgeous. But Lorraine Gary, who wound up getting the role, at least could act a little bit. So, I mean, a lot of things are happy accidents. Now, the only thing that makes a studio or even investors in indie film comfortable is your resume. So the guy who just did something is the guy, they don't know if the next script's going to be good. So many times we get a writer that does a great movie and his next movie stinks. You know, the guy who wrote Armageddon, the next 3 movies stunk. But Armageddon was a huge hit. But so they hired him for everything. Jonathan Hensley and Shane Solano, right?
I got to admit, I hated Armageddon. That was probably the most predictable movie I've ever watched. It was horrible.
Did you pay the money to go see it?
No, I waited for it to be on DVD, to be honest.
At least you could say that. Oh, well, you bought the DVD, so they made money.
I didn't buy it. This is back in the day when they actually had DVD rental stores.
Look, when I made my first movie, the producer said to me, I really don't care if the movie sucks. What I care about is who's the cover art and the names of the actors on the cover. Once they buy the movie or rent it, I have their money ready. I don't care if they like it. I mean, that's what she said to me.
Nice.
So, yeah. And, and then she said, look, I need no one under 21, at least 5 murders. I need 2 sex scenes and 1 lesbian scene. Other than that, you can write whatever you want.
Sounds like the perfect movie to me. Hey, I got a question for you from Eric here. And Eric is asking, Ian, do you think that the distribution system for movies causes the problem?
Yes, because here's a situation we have, and just to get to the point I was trying to make before is nobody knows what's going to sell, so they base it on they don't care what the script is if it's from a guy who had a hit. So here's an example. I wrote 20 spec scripts before I got my first script Dr. Chopper made. And all those spec scripts had gone all around Hollywood. Most of them were passes. People read it and just passed on it. I didn't even get an answer half the time. And I went with an agent. The minute Dr. Chopper was made, this producer who did it had done 46 movies. It was the first one that premiered on Stars. We started getting calls from production companies for my other scripts. So we'd give them the list of what I had, and they'd ask us, I'd like to see that one, I'd like to see that one. And then we go look on the file, and they already had it and passed on it. So we called them back and go, you passed on it. You read it already. And the guy goes, I didn't read it. I sent it off to some reader. Now I'll read it personally. And I started optioning scripts. These are the same scripts the company passed on. The only difference was I had a movie made that got on, a little horror movie that was made for like $60,000 that got on, Stars, premiered on Stars, and all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, well, he must be good. We'll take his next script. And it was the same thing when I started. It's branding. Everyone writes the great script. What separated me, how I got my start from everyone else is Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Coppola movie had just come out, and it was a show on Bravo about the making of. And in the making of doc on Bravo, Coppola holds up this book, a bestseller from 1973, written by Professor Rado Florescu and Raymond McNally, Fulbright scholars who did the archaeological research into the historical Vlad the Impaler, Dracula, and did all the research. They actually got into the Vatican archives and did research. It's a huge bestseller in 73. I looked them up, found out they were still, teaching at Boston College. I was working as a bartender, dropped my job, got on a plane with every dime I had, parked myself in a hotel with an old-style typewriter. This was before, word processors. Well, they were out, but I just couldn't afford one. and then I followed them around with pages. I got the rights to the book for $1, and then I went back to New York and said if I sell the screenplay, I'll split the money with them. And now I had a branded, proven bestseller that only I had the rights to. And now the agents were calling me. The managers were calling me back, chasing me down, bidding wars over me. The idea for them is they don't know what sells. They only know that this was a bestseller. They don't care about the script. The script will be written. They'll have a dozen writers on it. They don't care. The thing is that I have value now because I have something that they can say, hey, I don't have to guess it's going to work. It already worked. It was a bestseller. The story of the historical Dracula, based on a best-selling book by these professors. One who was Florescu was Dracula's actual descendant by marriage, the historical Dracula's descendant. They became my mentors. And through them, I met the Stoker family, which is how I got my book deal for the sequel to Dracula. But to answer your listener's question, it's the same thing with distribution. See, it's not about, even with Unhinged, we have a movie that has a certain budget. you have to get a star to justify that budget. Because again, all right, we got a great writer. Now you need a star to sell it. So if you could get that star to read your script and like it, and they sign, and then you can work out a price for them that you can make the movie. That's the distribution deal. There it is right there. It's not always about the content. That's the problem. It's not like this is a great story. It's who's got the connections to pull for money to make the deal to get the actor. And the trick is for these actors is something called play or pay. So you can't just say, oh, I'm going to raise, $500,000 to pay some actor, A-list, some star. You have to raise the whole budget, because when you make an offer to a star, if you don't make the movie, if you don't raise the money, they keep their salary, because they got to block out a time from their schedule that someone else that has real money could pay. So you have to put your money in an escrow account, and if you don't make your movie, it's gone. And the only way to get a distributor is to have a star. So you have to have $1 million before you have a star, and then use that money to get a star and be ready to go. And the only reason that with episode 50, how I landed a distribution deal with no producing experience at that time was based on the book. They were selling the book. Oh, well, this is, you were number one in France, Germany, Spain, number 5 in America, and you were, number 3 in the UK. And they bought the movie when all I had was a treatment, just based on the fact that they could sell me as the co-author of Dracula the Undead. And that allowed me to land a distribution deal. And episode 50 was made for $109,000, and it's grossed over $2 million so far. And huge success. We actually opened it theatrically against The Ides of March, a George Clooney movie in the UK. And it did great. Came in number 2 for the week. And the success of it allowed me to go to a distributor and say, hey, I have a distribution deal. So we were able to raise the money to make the offer to the star based on having a distribution deal. Most people don't really understand how all this works. When you're a kid and getting started, you don't understand it. So what you're doing is you're writing a script and sending it in and hoping. I don't follow rules. I've never followed rules. If someone else is going right, I will go left just on principle. I don't believe in follow the leader. If everyone's doing it one way, you have to do it another way. You have to find your own route. And that's how you win in Hollywood. That's the real truth of it. You got to make them see that your way is the right way, and you got to hope you know what you're doing. There's the old line from Passenger 57, always bet on black, right? I always take that, always bet on yourself. And I really believe that. You got to trust your talent, and then you've got to make it happen. And how you do that, you practically have to be a con artist today to really make it work. You have to be able to figure out, all right, I have this commodity, so I'm going to use that to get a distribution deal. And then once I have guaranteed worldwide distribution before I even have a script or a movie, they're basing it on me, on my past talent and my work. Now I can go raise the money. Now I can go write the script. Now I can go hire the actor and put up the player pay in the escrow. Now I can make a movie.
Let me ask you, though, when it comes to horror, when it comes to paranormal or UFOs or anything along those lines, is there anything new? Is there anything that is just fresh where it doesn't remind you of anything? Because I'll tell you, when we mentioned Armageddon earlier, I mean, it was only obvious that the rocket was going to land. One of them was going to crash, so they only had one ship out, and then there wasn't going to be enough seats for everybody to get back. It was so obvious, and it seems like so many movies now are predictable and obvious. So when you're running a horror movie where the minute the music goes on that somebody's going to die in a grotesque way, and now they're trying to find new fandangled ways to kill people, It seems like it's already been done. There's nothing that is...
Yes, because horror movies are not movies. very few. Alien, The Exorcist, whatever happened to Baby Jane, Silence of the Lambs, The Shining. With very few exceptions, horror movies are not movies. They're not looked at as movies. They're not expected to be movies. You don't need deep multi-dimensional characterizations. You don't need standard, storylines. What horror movies are looked at as in the independent world, not in Asia, but in America, in the independent world, and in studios, they're money grabs. That's how the investors look at them, and the distributors look at them, and the studios look at them. It's a way to get teenagers, horny teenagers into a room to see a sex scene, or horny teenagers or frustrated teenagers who want to beat up their fathers because they told them they couldn't go out last night, or they're being picked on at school and get out their frustrations by watching people being killed that they, A-list people, the popular kids in school being killed in fun and creative ways. That's what it's always been. It's also been a date movie. What better? My biggest thing was growing up in the 80s, was get a girl, first date, out to a horror movie, you're on third base before the movie's over. Greatest thing ever, But that's how the studios look at it. Well, I just saw Get Out. One of the most tense, suspense-filled horror movies that keeps the standard tropes, the house in the woods, creepy characters, murders. But it elevated the material because it dealt with social and racial themes that we have never seen in a horror movie before. I don't know if you've ever seen the way horror movies deal with these things. Is like poor Laletti, Leslie Uggams in the 1972 movie was a Diana Ross-like star who's driving to meet her mother in a Rolls Royce through the bayou, and she gets pulled over, and they arrest her, and they rape her, and she decides, they leave her for dead, and she comes back and kills them all because they won't want to taste a black girl. That's the sickness of the level of racial and social commentary. Night of the Living Dead was, all about the civil rights movement and the Vietnam War, even though George Romero denies that, but that's how it's been written about. So we put these themes in these movies, but Get Out is right up front about it in every single way. It is a smart, intelligent, that respects the audience, the horror film audience, as an astute, thoughtful audience. The Purge does that somewhat, but it's still more exploitative. Get Out is a real movie. We got to realize Hitchcock was laughed at when he did Psycho until it made money. They thought he went nuts. How can you go from Val Lewton? How can you be obsessed with Val Lewton movies? Same thing with the director of Baby Jane. If you watch his Feud, he's like, Betty Davis and Joan Crawford in a horror movie. And the studio looks at the first cut and they're like, oh, it's horrible. But it's a horror movie. It's a B movie. Who cares? That's the attitude of horror movies. They're not respected at the awards. That's why we have to have our own awards. It sometimes feel like the porno movie awards, because it's separate from Hollywood in every way. But Get Out.
What about someone, though, like M. Night Shyamalan, who had us all sitting on the edge of our seats with movies like The Lady in the Water, Signs, and other movies along those lines where it was absolute suspense. He was packing in the theaters, and then all of a sudden, he disappears. You don't hear from him.
Because his movies were one-trick ponies. They were good movies, especially The Sixth Sense, but they were all one-trick ponies. And the thing with Shyamalan is that you have to know is he didn't have that twist with Bruce Willis being dead from the beginning in the script that got sold to be made. It was a straight-up ghost story. The producer did that and then rewrote the script with him. And then they did it again for Unbreakable. And when, they got to the village and it really didn't work, he went off on his own and started doing, Lady in the Water and these others that just were one bomb after the other, The Last Airbender and everything, The Happening. It was a disaster after disaster after disaster. Another Earth or whatever it was with Will Smith and Jaden Smith. And then he got back to basics with, The Visit and really, knocked it out of the park with Split, which isn't a horror movie. Split is not a horror movie. It's a psychological thriller. It's not a horror movie. And it's PG-13. It's Shyamalan, and it's still always the same thing. When you sit down for the screenings at Cannes, when I had my screening at Cannes for episode 50, all the studios were there, and it was between us and The Devil Within for which one they were going to buy. And how they rated the movie, although, I had problems with the director. They didn't direct some of the scares. They wanted it to be more of a mystery, and I wanted a horror movie, and studio, Bleberg wanted a horror movie, and they had their own ideas, and it was too late to do anything about it because they were already hired as directors. We only had 13 days to shoot at the hospital before it was being sold and raffled off. The land sold because it was shot in actual close time. We had that commercial where the audience jumped in the black black light camera, night vision camera, and and that's what was the bellwether now. How many jumps there are? So, Devil Within had 5 more jumps than episode 50, and they bought The Devil Within for $2 million. That was how they decided.
Ian, I want to cut you off there because we only have about 3.5 minutes before we have to go to break here, and sometimes you and I, let's face it, we lose track of time when we're doing this.
Right,
we do. So, but one of the topics that I'd like to carry over into the next hour in regards to movies, because I think this is absolutely enthralling for me, okay, is I'd like to carry on. There are so many different type of paranormal stories, okay, and when I say paranormal, I'm saying that as an umbrella word here. To me, if we know, and Hollywood knows, alien movies make money. Horror movies make money. Suspense movies, whether you liked it or not, Paranormal Activity, and Blair Witch made huge amounts of money. People love that type of stuff because it could be real. Not Jason coming out of the lake or Freddy in your nightmares. As much as I'm a big Freddy fan, and by episode 5 or movie number 5, I was actually cheering for Freddy rather than the people to get away.
Right.
but the whole point that I'm getting at is there are so many legitimate stories that would scare the socks off of people if they were just told by the truth. Why do we not see Hollywood trying to capitalize a little bit more on that, like they're trying to do with the Warren stories? They did The Conjuring, which was loosely based on the Perron family. They've tried a couple others. I mean, they screwed up with Fire in the Sky and the real happening of Travis Walton. They always want to tinker with it, rather than just tell the absolute seriousness and scariness of the true story. We got about 90 seconds for you.
2 things. One is branding again. If Conjuring sold because it's a possession story and possession stories were hot, that's your answer. Telling the truth, like a Fire in the Sky or Communion and all these stories, they don't want to tell that. It's heightened because you're counting the scares. Again, you, with very few exceptions, you're with big directors that are, do you think The Exorcist could have been made if Friedkin hadn't done The French Connection? This was his next movie. This is why. You have to have a branded story, and everyone wants to tell the same story. Nightmare on Elm Street sold because basically it's a great idea, an original idea, but it's still a slasher paradigm. The guy with knives kills the kids. So, I mean, they will accept originality to a point, but at the end of the day they want to sell the last movie. It's like we always say, oh, my God, we're always fighting the last war. They're always trying to copycat the last movie. I mean, you look at Life. If you could tell me the difference between the Life trailer and Alien, it's the same movie. It's like they were using the same sound effects. You liked Alien, you're going to love Life. It goes back to music. When they couldn't get Led Zeppelin back together, they made Kingdom Come. When Good Charlotte came out and had an original sound, there were 6 bands that sounded like them the next day. It's the snake eating the tail.
Mm-hmm. I hear you there, my friend. I'm going to get you to hold on right now,
sure,
because we're going to get ready to hop out for a break. Ian Holt is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. His brand new movie that starts filming this coming summer is called Unhinged, with Mickey Rourke. I almost got tongue-tied on that. Why? I don't know. Mickey Rourke. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this break.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
The third Monday of every month, Spaced Out Radio is going to bring you a different look at everything paranormal. Welcome to The Reporters. Jim Mallard, Vanessa Hogel, Denise Garcia, and Christina George join me, Dave Scott, for a look at the weird and strange from the other side of the microphone. We'll break down ghosts, UFOs, cryptids, and the people investigating them. The paranormal media has never been heard like this. Come listen to The Reporters.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Hey, this is Canadian paranormal investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up, enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride. Tomorrow night on the show, we are stepping into the land of conspiracy. That's because we will have Greg Bishop on. We are going to talk about government disinformation. It's going to be a power show filled with a lot of topics that we're going to get into of how the government seems to be putting out all this false information, false flags, fake news. We're going to get into it at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in our terrestrial radio stations following us, WQEE 99 Rock the Key, down in Noonan, Georgia, where they host The Walking Dead. Yes, that's where it's filmed. We are the number one show there at night, and we love doing that. Thank you, WQEE and Ryan and the rest of the team. We're also live on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM, Joe Montaldo's network, because he kicks butt and takes names in this field as well. We're also broadcasting in over 160 countries around the world. We're live in Las Vegas on Renegade Talk Radio and on Revolution Radio. Remember, if you are listening in on the Double R machine, it's a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Onomatopoeia. Oh, I read it wrong. I got all excited. Onomatophobia. Onomatophobia is your password for tonight. So make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers. Bill sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, if you want to follow us all over social media, you can do it on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag like Deb and Jeff and the rest of the crew. Hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to chat live with me during the show. You can also give our Facebook page a like. Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. We're also on TalkStream Live, RadioGuide.fm. And on Stitcher. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. And if you head on over to patreon.com, that's Patreon.com, patreon.com, you can become a Space Out Radio patron for as low as $1 a month. What else do you get for $1 a month anymore? Can't even buy a candy bar for that. But go to patreon.com to fill us in. Ian Holt is our guest tonight, one of our most popular guests we have on this show. He'll also be on in 2 weeks' time to talk more about his movie, Unhinged, with Mickey Rourke. Ian, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone.
Right before the break, we started talking about paranormal movies. And and I'll tell you, Ian, in 1988, one of the best recorded UFO and alien encounters happened about a mile outside of my community. There are thousands of people who know about this experience of Miriam Delicado. And I realize because it's Canadian, it's not going to get a lot of publicity compared to if it happened in the States. But I was thinking about this, and I'm thinking, damn, why isn't there a movie about this? Why isn't there a movie?
Is that a book?
Pardon me?
Is that a best-selling book?
No, I understand that. But the way I look at it, and I'm not a movie buff. I gave up movies a long time ago because, well, I'll be honest with you, my parents ruled me with an iron fist as a kid. So every weekend while all my buddies were out having a good time chasing girls, I was staying at home watching VHS tapes of any movie I could find, right? Thank you to my older sister.
That's like me with my Super 8 Swedish erotica.
Exactly.
I'd find in my dad's closet.
Well, we didn't even go that far. Old senior there, he was a little bit more prudish than that. But the whole point that I'm saying is, I got sick of movies, and that's why I really kind of backed away from watching a lot of movies in my adulthood, because I was done with them. But the whole point that I'm saying is, when it comes to this field, there are so many good stories, whether it's Bigfoot encounters, whether it's UFO encounters. Make it real or make it fiction. It really doesn't matter. Why are these topics, in your opinion, Ian, just absolutely pushed to the side for somebody either doing a repeat of a movie with the new CGI or maybe another movie that's like a borrowed script from another movie, just a title and characters changed?
Unless you have a best-selling book, and even then it's not guaranteed, but if you have a best-selling book, they go, well, look, this story's special. Now, if I come to them with a story based on a real story, they look at it. I mean, look, this is exactly what happened. I went to all the studios with episode 50, and they said, geez, you can't do a horror movie that discusses the difference between the scientific interpretation of entities and the spiritual interpretation of entities and what these entities mean to our religion or our science. They said, you can't do that. Cut all that out to scare us. That's why I made it independent. And, I'm not, when you sit down and make a movie, Hollywood's a rigged game, and this is the truth for all you got people out there that want to make movies or thinking about making a movie. It's all rigged. I saw a documentary on the History Channel about the Winchester House with all the hidden rooms and people that died there, the guns that killed people. I said, boy, this would make a great horror movie. And then I go and I start with the distributor with Unhinged, and they said, we have this great director, Mark Atkins, who's listening. Hi, Mark. And they hooked us up. It turns out when Mark's first movie was The Haunting of Winchester House. He had already done it. I just hadn't seen it. And I watched it. It was fantastic. It was just everything that I was thinking about. So I knew we were going to hit it off immediately. But what happens is when once you establish yourself and you can walk in and say, I've got a story, and they trust you because you've already had a hit, then all these people come on with great minds like Mark, and the people at Archstone, and my business partner, Michael Walden, who was, worked on The Hours, an Academy-nominated movie, and did, The Bronx Tale, and, Kissing Jessica Stein, and all these movies. They have all this experience. He used to run Canon Films, did He-Man, the Master of the Universe. He did Barfly with Mickey Rourke, so you do all these movies. And then they sit down and they go, I have an idea. And when it's about making the movie better, see, when you're in a studio, everyone's trying to justify their name on the credit roll. So when you're doing a movie like Ripley's Believe It or Not, you have Jim Carrey attached, and Jim says, we should have a little more action in it and not just stick to the story. And then some guy comes in, some executive, and says, you should have a giant spider in it. I'm like, well, there is he wasn't like a supernatural guy, Ripley. He went around the world finding cool stuff and putting it in the museum. Yeah, but kids love spiders. and they force you to put a giant spider in it, and it has nothing to do with the movie. And you're looking at yourself like whatever, and the movie doesn't get made, and then the executive gets puts on another movie, and I go and see Wild Wild West, and his name is on, and sure enough, the villain's riding around a giant mechanical spider. He got his spider. The movie bombed, but he got his spider, got his name on the, justified, I have my yellow note. But when you're working with people that you respect, like Mark and Michael, you sit down and it becomes like a landslide or, a steamroller or, like a snowball picking up more snow because you have a script that you start with and Mark comes up with a great idea and you go, holy shit, that's incredible, and then Michael comes in with an idea and you're like, wow, that's incredible. And it's based like with M. Night Shyamalan and the idea that Bruce Willis is dead through the whole movie. You have people with experience that you trusted and working with and respect for their talent. You look at their body of work and you're like, I trust them. It was the same thing. Like, when I first worked with Jan de Bont, everyone says, oh, Jan doesn't do characters well or whatever. They're not in his movies. Said the same thing about Ridley Scott. But you sit down with Jan and he's like giving you these pearls of wisdom. All of a sudden, it's not just you anymore. And that's the beauty of independence, But then you get to the situation where, in order to get money, and that's the thing. It's not a creative business. It's business today. It's not like these executives and people that work there. They're out to make money. Period. They're not about art. If you can make art, and I don't believe art and money is, and commercialism is mutually exclusive, but you've got to find a way that they can both live in the same body. And when you put a movie together, you have to have certain tropes to make sure that you're covering your bases with what they believe is the core fanboy audience, which is, again, this dumb teenage audience who's there to either see, the cool kids get stabbed by Jason, or get out their frustrations because they can't do what they want. So, they watch some guy kill people and they get out their frustration. Or it's a date movie to scare a girl into your arms, boy, whatever, persuasion. But that's what they think. So they feel comfortable giving you money if you hit certain benchmarks that are needed. Like I said, my first movie, no one under 21, at least 5 kills, 2 sex scenes and 1 lesbian scene. That was her benchmark for her investors. You could write whatever you want in between that, but I have to cover those things to make my investors happy because they don't want something outside the box because it's a risk. If it doesn't work, then they lose their money and you don't get any more money. So you're hamstrung by the fact I got to please my investors. So you're very, like when a movie gets made, the investor gets the first monies that come in, they get 120% of their investment before you see a dime. And there are unscrupulous people out there that, say I want to make a movie for $5 billion and ring up, $3.5 billion in fees and make the movie for $1.5 million. And they were already paid with their salary as their profit, and they leave the investors out to dry because the movie's made so cheap and bad. That happens to a lot of movies that I know. When we make a movie, we share the risk with the investors. We take a nominal fee, reasonable fee, and we expect to get our investors back their money plus 20% before we see our profit. And therefore, you feel the strain and that tension and that fear of how original, how far can I go and be original and still maintain the basic core of horror. And that's like that in any movie, any genre of film. You don't want to go too far. Alien is a perfect example. It is original in every way, but it's still a monster movie. That's why it's so brilliant.
So let me ask you this then, because I know you're a big fan of the paranormal. When you look at all the topics and all the stories that you've heard, and you've been on a number of programs like this, you've been on, a researcher of the paranormal for about 20 years, what story out there can you think of and I'll put you on the spot here, that should be a movie today, because whether or not it's scary, whether or not there's a past history, that it's just intrigue, whatever it could be, what do you think should have been filmed that hasn't yet?
Well, I'll give you my personal example, okay? I mean, this is something that I'm working on. I'm trying to sit down with Charles Manson. I want to sit down with Charles Manson because I believe I know something that no one else knows. And, you know, I was involved with the West Virginia Penitentiary discovery of the pentagram, the Devil's Pentagram, hidden in the walls of the warden's house. And then I go downstairs into the museum, and there's letters from Charles Manson asking to be transferred to that facility. Why? Now, you know that the warden was known for having Bible study with the people. It's one of the most haunted places on the East Coast. You have them not doing Bible study, but actually doing satanic worship. And you have Charles Manson wanting to be transferred there. Letters and letters he wrote. And you have from the very beginning, even on the ABC special last week, you know, that was Sharon Tate's baby ripped from her stomach and sacrificed in a satanic ritual. Was Charles Manson and the family Satan worshipers? It's something that's been hinted at and pushed at, you know, and these were sacrificial murders. And, you know, that he has power. That he was, you know, that he wanted to go where this warden is to lead this satanic worship camp. You know, it's a place that's extremely haunted with really horrific things happening there. I went down to what they call the Sugar Shack, which is where they lock the prisoners in. And murders and rapes, they didn't have enough guards. So there was no guards down there. It was just rapes, murders, drugs, you know, whatever. And I lowered down and, you know, I said, this place doesn't look that scary. And a lead pipe came flying out of the ceiling and almost hit me. You know, just clanged on the floor. And I had to apologize. And then everything was all right. Scared the hell out of me. But the idea is that, you know, here's a story, you know, that's based on reality that Bugliosi, the prosecutor, you know, walked away from the satanic idea because he thought it was too incredible. And he wanted to get Manson, who didn't kill anyone, who just got them to kill. So were they possessed? I mean, you saw these people out on the street. You see the pictures of it. These women, they don't even understand what they did then, why they did it, why they make all these excuses, but there was something else going on. And just like with Hitler, where they say, you know, met this Jewish, you know, illusionist who taught him supposedly how to conjure a demon to talk to people, and he actually hypnotized them. You see their faces or possess them in some way with him using certain inflections of voice and stuff. Now, I don't know how real all this is, but it's real in their minds. So why isn't these movies told? You know, what's the real story behind Manson? I don't know. He's 80 years old. He's sick. You know, I saw the letters. And I discovered I have pictures of me in the warden's house. Maybe I can get him to tell me something that no one else has been able to get. That's a story, but it's sellable. I mean, they're making, you know, the Manson Girls movie right now. They had a Manson movie 2 years ago. That guy that wants to go to all the Manson sites. A horror movie. You know, it's a sellable. Manson has always been sellable. You know, and there you go. Okay, I got a movie about mass possession. You know, mind control and murder, and you know, cutting babies out of superstars' bodies. I mean, really sick stuff. So you have all the tropes of a real horror movie, yet maybe you're finding new story in an old story, you know? So that's something that could sell, you know? And if I don't get it, I hope someone else does, because I think there's something there. I think there's more to the Manson story. You know, Lorraine Warren, when I went to her house, she told me that the demon in the Amityville house that possessed the Feo and almost possessed the Lutzes, when she exorcised the demon, sanctioned by the church, the Catholic Church, who sent her a cross with a piece of the true cross supposedly piece of the shards of the cross that Jesus was crucified on, because the demon was so powerful, she couldn't exorcise him back to hell. She exorcised the house, and she believes that demon went on to be the son who possessed the dog that told the son of Sam to go commit the son of Sam murders, which happened right after her exorcism. I would love to tell the whole story that we get a little bit of in The Conjuring too. I mean, these are real stories that affected me as a child. I mean, as a child, my mom wanted to read me Winnie the Pooh and stuff, and I'm like, oh, read me, Dean Sanders' The Amityville Horror. That was my bedtime story. I've always been into it. I grew up a few towns over. I used to go to after the Ghost Boy picture was posted from the Lorraine Warren and Ed Lorraine Warren investigation. I used to have my dad drive me over in the mornings to the Amityville house. We sit outside waiting to see Ed Lorraine Warren coming in. And I try and talk to him. Oh, could I come in and be in the investigation? I was 5 years old? Not even. I was like 4 years old. So what really happened in that house during that investigation?
I understand. And, it's funny because we started a brand new feature last week on this show called Ghosts of the Great White North. I was very, very much still surprised at how many of our American listeners were saying, hey, Dave, you're throwing on a Canadian show. Yes, we're listening to it in the United States, but all we hear is these same American stories night after night. What are the good Canadian haunting stories? And here I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking, you know what? All our ghosts are Canadian, so they're going to be polite. They're going to be, say, boo. Oh, I'm sorry. But on the flip side,
is it boo or is it boo A?
It could be boo A. And then a quick apology. Then a quick apology, right? But here I was.
Sorry for scaring you.
Here I was thinking, what could we do? What would have some sort of impact on it? And that's when I started thinking about Miriam Delicado and that story. There's a bunch of murders along the old Gold Rush Trail. There's a story that's never really been told in mainstream, is how murderous the Gold Rush Trail was from California all the way up to the Klondike in Alaska. Well,
they did kind of do that. On Discovery Channel, they did a miniseries called Klondike, which was all about the murders and the way the guys were ripped off and the whole thing. It was a horror movie. It was a historical drama, but it's out there, and why it's why we don't. One of the reasons is the trail that they took to get to Dawson City is no longer in use except by hikers. It's not like it's very dangerous and very few people go that way. So to create a story, you have to put a reason why they're going there. And I always thought, what would be the reason? Well, if you watch Gold Rush, the kid on Gold Rush, I can't think of his name right now, his grandfather died, and he came up through the Klondike that way. So he's going through that trail, and I go, there's the reason for him being there. He's walking in his grandfather's footsteps. Now I can make that movie. See, a lot of times you need that hook. What's the hook that brings them there? These stories, the way they're put together is you got to bring them to me and let me know, because when I get one that's juicy, I may not know all the Canadian stories, so I'm counting on you. You tell me a good Canadian horror story, and I'll write it. That's a lot of it is again, luck and who you know.
The great Canadian horror story right now is our Prime Minister, but that's for another topic.
Oh, what are you kidding me? We have Trump. We Trump you.
Try Justin and his perfect hair, who likes to admit to himself that he's a feminist.
Well, our idea of our feminist who loves women president is the guy who grabs the pee. So we got you beat on that one. You want Trump, you can have him.
No!
I'll give you the crown anytime.
You want our guy? We'll pass him on over too. We'll pass him on over. I'm not going to
switch. We'll switch.
Trust me. Trust me, it's not that good up here, man. It's not that good. But we'll get into that discussion another time. All of a sudden, the Canadians are all like, "Ooh, what are you doing? What are you doing going off the rails like that? How dare you? I'm sorry for complaining, but that's all right. That's all right. Hey, when it comes, and there are those stories out there, whether it's horror, whether it's something. I'm someone who likes a good suspense film. And Paranormal Activity, and I've seen the first 3, I haven't seen 4 yet, but that one scared the living crap out of me, because it just seems so bloody real. And you look at the success at that movie, where the original one was filmed, I believe, for under $100,000, which is unheard of to
$12,000.
And to turn, it's the biggest profit from film cost to profit margin, I believe, in the history of film.
Yes. And it's all that commercial that I spoke about before, the black light, the night vision commercial with the audience jumping.
Mm-hmm. And what I'm trying to say here is, why haven't other movie producers tried to jump on that? We saw what happened when Blair Witch was filmed for cheap. It took off. People flock to the theaters. They have.
There's been numbered by the same production company, Extraterrestrial, a bunch of others that were these found footage movies that never made it into theaters. We don't look at Paranormal Activity in the industry as a movie. We look at it as a found footage movie, and found footage is out, so we're not making those type of movies anymore. It's like, I don't believe found footage is the problem. I believe that you made bad found footage movies or didn't promote them the right way. You look at that, I can't think of it. The name of the movie it wasn't a found footage movie, but it was about aliens coming to get a family. It bombed. So they didn't release Extraterrestrial. Extraterrestrial 10 times better than that other movie that was released about the aliens terrorizing a family. I can't think of the name of the movie. But they said, oh, well, it's a found footage movie. We're not released. Found footage movies aren't making money. And the other alien attack movie didn't make, trying to kidnap a family didn't make any money. So we're just not going to, we'll put it straight on DVD. And that was from Blumhouse, who did, Paranormal Activity. We are dealing with people that are looking at numbers and not at creativity. This is not the days of Walter Selznick and Jack Warner, who were willing to do something they believed artistic integrity bred money. We don't get movies like All About Eve and It Happened One Night anymore. We don't get Casablancas anymore. We don't get, the left-handed gun. We don't get those movies anymore because we don't have people in charge of green lights that actually can look at something and determine that it's going to be a hit because they understand art and the audience. So us as producers and screenwriters who are looking to sell our stuff are constantly trying to structure our films into a paradigm that is reflective of other movies. Like you said, repeats. Like I always go back to Nightmare on Elm Street. You have one of the most original movies you've ever seen, but it's still a slasher paradigm, which is how he got it made. It's still a guy with knives killing teenagers, high school teenagers. So, yeah, while the coming to them in the dream is the original part, that's okay because he still kills them with knives. It's a glove with knives, still kills them with knives. So you have the slasher paradigm that fits all the other movies in the 80s and the late 70s that when this came out, but you have something original. Scream, too. Scream is making, is a satire, making fun. It's a a self-aware horror movie, but it's still a guy with a knife killing teenagers. Even Get Out or Unhinged, we have a house in the woods and people trapped in this house, held hostage there, and a killer, but, we have something so original for the twist, I can't tell you, but, you're going to try to figure out who the killer is, but you never will. And an outside story of, of Mickey his former patient, trying to figure out what's going on and hunting down his patient and trying to save the kids in the house, find out where they are, and a whole backstory. But again, a lot of the action takes place within that. We still have, we still have the house in the woods. Same thing with Get Out. Totally original, but it's still with the house in the woods with a bunch of creepy people and murders. You have Cabin in the Woods. It's just what the title says. Completely original, but it's still a horror movie about a cabin in the woods. So we keep repeating these things because we know that sells. And also, there's a big thing in Hollywood. It always goes, I need to know what movie I'm in, which is a lot of times killer because you can't surprise the audience because you have to give away the story in the trailer to get people to go or to get people to rent it or to download it. So when you're picking a movie, you want them to know what movie. Oh, this is a horror movie. It's a house out in the woods and people are getting killed. Oh, I get it. Yeah, I'm in the mood for that kind of movie. I'll watch it. They believe that's, comfort food for people. I mean, you look at the trailer for Get Out, it's basically, guy comes to a house. Yeah, there's some racial overtones in it, but it's still a guy comes to the house and people try to kill him. So, I know that type of movie. I'll watch it. There's not a lot of room for creativity in Hollywood. That's the problem. And when there is something original or new, it's usually a branded product based on a best-selling book or, like Patriots Day. I mean, the Patriots Day and Deep Horizon are two examples of movies that we all saw live on TV. That's why they bombed. They're both terrific movies, but they bombed because why do we see it? But the studio put it out and put hundreds of millions of dollars into them because, we're familiar with that. That's branded. People will go see that. And they're wrong. Branded doesn't mean good or sales. It just makes you feel comfortable because you get to justify it to your investors. It also shows you have a lack of sack, a serious lack of sack. And everyone in Hollywood has a serious lack of sack.
Well, let's try and bring some sack back. Let's get to Eric's question here. Way to go, preacher. Anyways, Eric is asking, Ian, do you think that Roman Polanski knew what was going to happen to Sharon Tate? He was conveniently out of the country when the Manson family killed her.
He was shooting a movie. He was prepping a movie that he wound up actually having to step away from. It was, I don't think he knew what was going to happen. I think he was, look at his face. Look at the footage. He's white as a ghost, terrified. And it destroyed his life. This man's life, you say about him what you will, what happened afterwards but he was high on drugs and alcohol where he was delirious. He wanted to die. So the idea that he would know what was going to happen, I think he was, he was at a situation in his life that I, as part of the industry, understand it. You have a hit movie or you have a hit, you have to jump on that because they'll forget about you in a month because the next guy will come along. So he left his pregnant wife to go make a movie because he had to keep his career going. That's the way it is. And if you want to get the next big movie, you better jump at the chance and keep working. You should have a deal. You should always have a deal on your next project before your present project is finished, because if that present project bombs, you still get another shot. Because once you have a bomb, you're worth less money. And you may not get your project made. You may have to be a director for hire to get it work. So from my point of view, from my perspective, I understand exactly what he was doing. He wanted to provide for his family, and, he wanted to buy a house. Remember, he was renting, not Dinah Shore, I can't think of her name, did all the Rock Hudson romance pictures with Tony Curtis, all those funny movies. It was It was Doris Day's son's house that Manson used to come around there and scare him because he wanted a record deal, and he moved out and rented the house to Polanski, and so that she could have her friends stay there, Sharon with her. while he went off to make this movie. So the idea that he would do all that to set her up, I mean, it's just the luck that, like Hitler blamed his Jewish teacher, all the Jews, because he didn't let him into art school. He looked at that house as the house that took away his music career, and he wanted to kill anyone that was in that house. And it just so happened to be Sharon Stone.
Interesting. It all seems to just tie in, doesn't it? It really does. So, in your opinion, when we look at Hollywood then, what makes a good horror movie? What makes a good paranormal movie? And if you were to say what would be close to what the perfection that has come out of there that maybe we know about, maybe we don't know about, what movie would that be?
Well, I have some twisted views on this, because my favorite horror movie is Maniac, 1980, Joe Spinell. And the reason for that is because we always sympathize with the killer, and this movie has the sack to put the killer as the main character and gets into the psychology of why he kills, which I find original and very interesting and very rare. Jason, Michael, Freddy are not the stars of the movie. This one, Joe Spinell as Frank Zito is in every scene. We get into every bit, and it talks about, the abuse that a child suffers is carried forward. It also is the backstory of the movie. For me, it leads a lot to the psychology of the film, where, you have Joe Spinell, who is a heavy-set, crater-faced, not handsome by Hollywood standards in any way, and he wrote a love story about a guy who falls, a guy that looks like him, that's a janitor with a crater face and overweight, falls in love with a beautiful fashion photographer, played by Carolyn Monroe. Couldn't get it sold. This is the guy who's got Rocky sold. This is the guy that made Rocky. He actually did a movie for Robert Charlton and brought in Stallone's screenplay and got it sold. He's the guy who told Spielberg, hey, Jaws could use another scare. The head should pop up, and made Spielberg go and shoot the head popping up in his parents' swimming pool on his own money to add into the film to get the big scare. When the shark wasn't working, Spielberg was paranoid. Spinell was the one who told him that. So here you go. This guy gets pissed off at Hollywood because he can't make Frankie and Johnny and the Claire de Lune, 20 years before it's actually made. Of course, not the play, but the movie with Pacino and Pfeiffer, who are handsome people, which I don't know why they starred in it. But he decided I'm going to get angry and I'm going to make a horror movie about how, a poor janitor who's not handsome is looked less as and can't get a pretty woman. So I'm going to go out and kill all the pretty women and get revenge. I mean, that's all in the themes there. It was a rage against our media, which says you have to have this such a car and this such a job and this such a girl, and a girl that's really pretty should look like this. And if you're watching TV all the time like he is, he's in a one-room apartment with a TV and a bed, that's all that comes into your head. And it's, this is part of our psyche, the way media sells it. You have to be, remember heroin thin, So, I mean, that's why Maniac, to me, is if these movies are really about sympathizing with the killer, it doesn't matter that he's the lead. The killer is the lead. So I find that one, particularly fascinating, as a theme. And, again, I think probably the best well-made horror movie is, The Shining, The Exorcist, and Silence of the Lambs. Those are top-notch movies. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Psycho. These are movies that are way beyond they're not just horror movies, they're real movies. And I say that because horror movies at the Friday the 13th slasher movie level, and whatever the genre, but at that level, are not movies. I tell this to young writers all the time. Don't waste my time with deep characterizations and themes and all that. That may change now because we have a new paradigm with Get Out. but, they're really amusement theme park roller coaster rides. All you need is an excuse to get on the ride. It's, the Batman ride where you're going to go fly after the Joker at the front of the cars. Batman's got to stop the Joker. The girl, Don't Breathe. Girls robbing houses. Oh, the twist is her little sister's being abused, and she's being abused by her parents, and she's got to get out. She has no choice but to rob. She's sympathetic. Okay, got it. Let's go put them in the house. Let's get to the horror. And then make us jump as many times as we can. Tension, suspense, scares. That's what it is. I mean, Get Out, when I saw it in the theater, the funniest part of it was there was this African-American guy sitting 2 seats down from me, and when, there's an interracial couple, and I don't want to give anything away, so there's no spoilers, but he sees them together. She's a skinny little white girl that he's dating, and he goes, "Oh, man, this is bullshit. Black man likes a girl with some meat on a bone." And the whole theater cracks up. Theater, but it cracks up. And that kind of, the movie that, throughout the whole movie, there are things like that go against every stereotype that we have that makes us aware of our own, how a black person sees the world, everything through race. And all of a sudden you're looking at this movie where it's way beyond horror, and it delivers the goods and all the scares. And you're saying to yourself, gee, this is not a roller coaster. This is a low-budget, cabin in the woods paradigm movie that transcends all of it, and suddenly you have a real movie with real characters and real themes that speaks to our political situation in real ways that when you walk out, you've not only been scared and had a good time, but you've learned something and left to think about something, which we are not usually allowed to have with horror movies because, again, most of them are roller coaster rides. You're not supposed to have deep characters or anything. Get to the scares as fast as possible. Give as many of them as you can.
Quick question from Eric here before we change topics. He's saying, have you ever seen The Changeling starring George C. Scott? And what's your opinion on that?
Oh, yeah. Love it. I saw it as a kid. Scared the heck out of me. I love that movie. And it's kind of a forgotten classic, but anyone out there with the sound of my voice, if you rent The Changeling and watch it, it is absolutely a fantastic horror movie. It's great. Wow. That's one of my, private classics. That's a great movie. The listener is absolutely right. And it's kind of forgotten about. Resurrected, no pun intended. Yes, pun intended. But it's another child ghost story. It's fantastic.
Do you think that as we turn this more into a paranormal topic, because that's kind of what we do here on this show, do you think, though, that there is a lot more quality paranormal stories out there than what we know, or has paranormal tourism and the shape of the paranormal and the perception people have of it in general for reputation kind of ruined that?
No. What I think is, as we become more educated in the science behind paranormal, you're pushing away from the visceral that they look for in the movies. And this was what I came up against. I mean, I opened episode 50 with the different scientific definitions of the different type of hauntings. Residual, intelligent, poltergeist, and inhuman. And I give the definitions of them. For the studios, they were like, ghost is a ghost is a ghost, of course. Poltergeist doesn't have a meaning it just is another name for a ghost. But when you watch the movie, the original Poltergeist, you have an exact representation of what a poltergeist really is. But for the audience, they didn't make much of a distance between a residual intelligent or poltergeist haunt. So, the more we get into science, because they want a visceral experience for a horror movie, again, roller coaster theme park ride, they don't want to get smart about it. And when you do the ghost hunts, it's a scientific experiment. So you're getting away from the core, thing jumping out at you, boo, and the table moving across the room, and, stuff flying at you. And, they hold on to these benchmarks that they think need to be filled because that's what the audience wants. They don't seem to recognize or entrench deep enough into the genre, like you say with Paranormal Activity, that realizes we see these ghost hunt shows on the, on all the cable channels, and we watch them religiously. Sci-fi, Ghost Hunters, whatever, whatever one on Destination America or Discovery or, National Geographic Channel. We see these, and the audience is educated, and they're ready for more sophisticated stuff. The problem is the studios or the people that make the movies or finance the movies aren't. Audience is always ahead of these people. So again, they look at it and go, yeah, but where's the scene where the thing flies across the room? And you're like, okay, I'll put in the giant spider for you, half of these haunts are actually about, trying to figure out how to get the person into the light, how to exercise the house. It's you go in and a family is scared, and you try to teach them how to live with it, or that you find out that the kids were playing with a Ouija board or something. They opened a door, they called the spirit there some way, or it's an object. I mean, there's a movie. My movie titles are getting all mixed up. There's a movie about a Kabbalah, Hasidic Jewish box that holds a demon, and it's, how the Hasidic rabbis have to exorcise a demon. There's a film called The Unborn where Gary Oldman plays a rabbi, where it gets into the Jewish tradition of what a demon is. And what about Asian films? Like we had a tough time with episode 50 because they were ghosts and demons, and in Asia, they don't believe in that. They believe in curses. A ghost is a curse. It's a whole different belief system on what a ghost is. So, we had to change the dubbing, in the movie and the subtitles to make it work for Asian cinema. So, I mean, what about the exploration of, they gloss over it slightly in The Grudge. It's much deeper than that. The body has to be recovered and buried. I mean, why do you think the people in Flight MH70 that disappeared are freaking out? Their relatives are cursed in torment because they can't properly bury them. And they will be a curse on the family with terrible things happening until they find the body. Now, for Americans, we don't know what the hell that is, but it's not that hard to explain that we can't do a movie about a family living in Asia and have a bunch of Asian friends, and, the plane goes down, they got to find the body, or, there's an accident in the woods and they got to find the body. I mean, there are so many different ideas of what paranormal is, and we keep, like you say, repeating the same stuff because that's what's comfortable.
Shar has an interesting question here. She is asking, Ian, have you seen any paranormal activity on the set when you're making horror movies?
Oh, man. I haven't had stuff on the set, but I have had tons of experiences researching episode 50. Going to the West Virginia State Lunatic Asylum, and the experiences that I had there. I had a 23-minute actually conversation with a ghost through copper divining rods. Like I was holding the rods loosely in my hand, and I would say, walk towards me for yes, because the electromagnetic energy makes the rods cross, and when I step back, they separate. And I had this 20-minute conversation, and for me, that was one of the most transformative moments in my life, because I'm sitting there with, for me, is the absolute proof of life after death. I don't question it anymore at all. And I've had experiences my whole life. I mean, to be honest, when I moved from Brooklyn to Long Island, this is before Atari, I was a little kid, and my grandmother bought me a bunch of board games. One of the games she bought me was a Ouija board. And I started playing with it at night in my room because I could never sleep. I never went to sleep till like 3 a.m. No matter, now it's like 5 a.m. I don't go to sleep. But I guess I was always half vampire. But whatever it was the one thing I could do at night by myself was play with the Ouija board. And, I've had experiences my whole life, a lot of different stuff. And it wasn't until I met, Jason Hawes from Ghost Hunters, who explained to me that back when I was a kid, I opened the door playing with that Ouija board, and that's why all these things have happened, and I've seen things, and it culminated in my research for episode 50. And the funny thing is, I can't say I saw anything, because when we shot episode 50 in Rutherford, New Jersey, a hospital had been closed, and we had the entire hospital, all the beds, all the equipment, everything was there. We had it for 12 days before they had the auction to sell off everything inside and sell the property. So we had full run of the hospital. We were alone in a giant hospital. We slept there in the patient rooms, and a lot of people, were in the chapel. They had nightmares. Certain people saw shadow figures walking down the hall. There were ghosts of, they believed, people that died. I mean, we had people screaming in the middle of the night. None of it happened to me there, which is kind of surprising. But there was a lot of stuff that happened during the filming of episode 50. I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of ghosts in that hospital. People die there. So when we went, the only thing that I had was getting really chilled when we were in the morgue, shooting in the morgue, which was pretty, you had the dissection table and the freezers, and that was kind of heavy air. But all my experiences were surrounding the making of and the research for that I had my most intense experiences.
Does that kind of put a reality to what you were doing when you have those experiences around the filming, or is it just another burden as you're trying to get everything done, and now you got to worry about some sort of ghosts or spirits running around messing with equipment and the actors?
Well, here's a fight that I had when we were making the movie. There's a scene where one of the characters is basically kidnapped by the ghosts and put in a electroshock room. Now, the question came up while we were developing the screenplay, can ghosts physically move people? And I was saying, no, this is the ghost in her mind, because there have been instances, like when we were at the West Virginia State Penitentiary, my agent walked away, and we found her standing at the wall in this room with a mannequin with its head cut off, and that was there for the prisoners. And we went up to her, and she jumped when like she didn't know where she was, like how she got there, And that was one of the things. I'm like, no, this isn't really happening. It's in her head. The ghost is making her see it in her head. And they like, but that, ghosts can't move stuff. And I'm like, this is in her head, and this was one of the things where something that actually happened, and that I've heard many stories of it happening to people, wound up conflicting with the standard tropes of horror films. And for people that knew about this stuff, they were like, wow, that's really interesting. For people that didn't, they were like, oh, that's bullshit. Ghosts can't move stuff, move people around and tie them up on a gurney. No, they really didn't. She was just happening in her head. So when you find her, a few scenes later, she's crunched down and they go to touch her. She just wakes up and starts screaming. It's all in her head. But for people that don't understand this stuff, this is where you run into, I'm trying to make something real, that this stuff really happens to people, and more than half the audience, or the reviewers don't get it because they're like, ghosts can't move stuff.
I'm going to get you to hold on right there, Ian, because we're just a few seconds away from going to break. Ian Holt is our guest tonight, movie producer, author extraordinaire, and a guy with just some darn good hair. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. More paranormal talk with Ian Holt coming up right after this. So make sure you stick with us. While you're listening to the break, go to our website, spacedoutradio.com. Check out a plethora of features there, and head on over to patreon.com and become a Spaced Out Radio patron today. We'll talk to you in just a couple minutes.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4 Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories. From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us tonight. Tomorrow night on the show, get your tinfoil hats ready. We're going to bring in Greg Bishop. We're going to be talking government disinformation, from false flags to false events, crisis actors, and the disinformation they are leading us down the path. That starts at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in our terrestrial stations following us. WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, where they film The Walking Dead. Thank you for choosing us as your nighttime entertainment. We're also live on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans, in over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. Live in Sin City, Renegade Talk Radio in Las Vegas, my favorite city in the world, and on Revolution Radio. The Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Onomatophobia. Onomatophobia is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as we once again have Bill set the password each and every night on the mighty SOR. Hey, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our hashtag Spaced Out Radio a try as well if you want to chat with us during the show. You can also give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes, TalkStream Live, RadioGuide.fm, or Stitcher. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can also head on over to patreon.com, become a patron of Spaced Out Radios for as low as $1. I highly suggest you do. I want to give you guys some swag. So make sure, if you want some Spaced Out Radio swag, make sure you become a patron or join the SOR Space Travelers Club. Ian Holt is with us. He's going the distance tonight. He'll also be with us in 2 weeks' time to talk more paranormal, horror, and absolutely everything. Ian, welcome back.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Dave.
Yes. Let's get to the commercials, or the questions from our audience again, because we just did the commercials. Don't know where that came from.
Right.
Deb at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and Deb's only been listening to us for a couple of weeks here, but she's here every night, and she posts some good questions, so thank you, Deb. We'll give you a big mention on that. She's wondering what hospital you were filming at where all this paranormal activity was taking place.
It was actually Rutherford, New Jersey. It was the hospital that was on the news that they closed the hospital and the ER in a poor neighborhood, and they had all the rallies there led by Reverend Al Sharpton, and they managed to keep the emergency room open until a new one was built in the neighborhood, because they would have had to ship people from the city all the way over to another town, and the response time would have been doubled. So it was a really tense area, to shoot a movie in, because there was a lot of protests and stuff going on about the closing of the emergency room and this entire hospital. So the emergency room was open, and they were receiving patients with, we had we always try to shoot at the backside of the hospital, so we didn't hear the sirens coming in with the ambulances or the police sirens. It was quite a situation, because we got to know the people in the neighborhood and the community, and the worry that they had as the clock was ticking down to the auction and the selling of the property, and whether or not they were behind in the opening of the new emergency room, and would the new emergency room be open by the time this one was finally closed down. I really felt for everyone. It's a tough situation, especially people that were, at that time before Obamacare, they didn't have coverage unless they were really poor or on Medicaid. So, the ability to get to an emergency room for them was paramount, and it was a real eye opener to how people struggle, even in America, on this stuff. And my heart went out to them, the whole time. It was quite an experience.
Eric has a question for you. He is asking, what are you thinking about the issues they had with movie sets like Poltergeist? All hype to sell movies, or reality?
Well, it's hard to deny that Poltergeist was a cursed set. I mean, but the legend of Poltergeist is not just Poltergeist. It's Poltergeist 2, and Poltergeist 3 too. It's not just Poltergeist. These things happened over, the deaths of the stars of the movie, happened, and the cancers and all of that, happened over all three movies. So to me, I believe, from my experience, that we draw these things to us. So by stepping in and creating the atmosphere of these ghosts, you sometimes draw it to you. And, when you open a door to this kind of stuff through your mental energies, what you attract is an inhuman. And an inhuman is something that was never human. Call it a demon, call it whatever you want, but they are attracted to those people that unwittingly open doors. And I think, Tobe Hooper's mental condition while he was making the movie, and subject matter, all added to this door opening. And how it affected them, I think it's totally possible. This is not a case of, everyone on El Cid dying because they filmed it on a former nuclear test site. everyone getting cancer and dying. This is something different. And I think anybody, that creates an atmosphere where they attract this stuff, sadness, regret, or even acting it, can attract it. These inhumans are looking to, if they do exist as they're described, they're looking to feed on us in any way. They feed off our negative energy, and this is not, this is being proven more and more in science that, particles appear in and out of existence. They go through different layers now. There's all kinds of new adhesives because things are disappearing and reappearing, and negative and positive energies attract all this stuff, and they seem to grow larger, whereas positives feed off the negatives. In the molecular particles, in the particle colliders, the giant particle colliders that they have in Sweden, all this stuff, we're finding out more and more. There's so much more at a molecular level in modern scientific discoveries that that give credence. Let me put it that way: that give credence to these theories of how we attract this stuff to us by our emotional states, our mental states, and what position we put our minds in. So, is it possible? Yeah, I think it's possible. There's more to we're our own worst enemies than we thought the phrase meant.
Last night, we started a brand new feature on this show called The Reporters, where I brought in some fellow online radio hosts that, we kind of debated and discussed a lot of the topics in regards to what is good and what is bad of the paranormal. As someone who is kind of on the fringe of the paranormal and the fringe of Hollywood at the same time, when you look at the paranormal with a wide-angle lens, what do you see as the positives of this field, and where do you think it needs to be improved?
Well, let's go to Mickey. 30 years ago, this is the anniversary, Mickey did Angel Heart, which looked at the ability of selling your soul to the devil. Now, that's an old trope that goes all the way back to Faust and all of that. So there's a fantastical level to this stuff that we in Hollywood promote. And look, we're really lucky that Mickey hasn't done a horror movie in all these years, and he's picked Unhinged to be his next film on the 30th anniversary of Angel Heart. We're very proud of that. But that story, as great as it is, it deals with voodoo and body transfer and soul transfers and all of that, which is a more difficult pill to swallow in the realm of reality. It makes for great films. I think when I look through my lens at what I'm filming is I don't necessarily feel when I'm making a totally fictitious film the need to present anything more than the kernel of the truth, because we're storytellers. This is not reality. But if the kernel of it is true, like in Unhinged, where we're dealing with, what if there are ghosts, then does that mean there's God? And if there is God, does that mean there's a devil? So it's a psychological progression that the characters go through to come to the conclusion that the average person that scoffs at the supernatural can find the reasons to believe in it. So through my lens, my job, I feel, is first and foremost to tell a good, scary story with great characters, but also give them a journey and in that course of that journey, I present the benchmarks that would allow a viewer to go, wow, there's a kernel of truth to that. I need to look at this further. When I was doing episode 50, I felt a different responsibility because that story was really about what is a ghost, as opposed to science and opposed to religion. And for that movie, I felt, episode 50 was really about my dealing with the passing of my aunt and uncle and my mentor, Boyce Harmon, the producer, and all within a short time frame, and it really messed me up. And having that 25-minute conversation with the ghost gave me the I believe that there's life after death. So what I wanted to get to with episode 50 was, when you watch Ghost Hunters, when you watch these paranormal shows, we're not just watching them. Don't just watch them as like, oh, a goof and does it scare me tonight? You know, oh, this is cool evidence. Open your mind, Quaid, you know, and take another step further. What's the implications? Is this the root of faith? Is this the root of belief in a scientific version of life after death? Are we just more than this crude flesh, as, you know, Yoda said? You know, I mean, I wanted people to look at this stuff and think beyond just the fun of the scare. So a lot of times your lens is what you're trying to tell with your film. Sometimes you're just trying to entertain people and give them, you know, a kernel of truth that allows them to accept it in reality and to go along with the journey of the characters. Other times, I don't want to say message, I hate that, but you're trying to present an argument with your film. So it really depends, you know, what I'm trying to do with the movie, what the purpose of the movie is. And what keeps it fun for me is horror allows you so many different avenues to look after, from, you know, alien abduction, which is kind of sci-fi, to monster movies, to pagan gods, to Bigfoot. You know, Dead of Night that I'm doing with you, it's going to be directed by Christopher Baker. I haven't even announced that one yet. You're getting the breaking news here. This summer we're doing, besides doing death metal, written and directed by Mike Kuciak, we're doing Dead of Night, that's written by me but directed by Christopher James Baker, who you may know from The Purge election year. He played Reverend Harmon, the guy who kills people on the stage and kills Bubba Gump. So that movie, I'm taking it to a new level. What is the nature of the pagan gods? What we consider pagan gods at one time are now considered demons. And what exactly is their relationship, you know, to our modern world? And how they fit in? And how does not the white paganism, but the dark paganism, you know, how does these sacrifices and things that people do and belief systems, what is the evidence of these creatures existing today? And the interesting thing is, one of the, you know, the demons that we looked at to get the story for Dead of Night is Pazuzu, who was the demon in The Exorcist, you know, and how each of these demons represented, when you worship them, you got something from them. And, you know, the question is, how does this exist for millions of years if these people didn't get something from it? If it was all nonsense, you know, how does this happen? Now, this leads back full circle to Angel Heart. We look today at selling our souls to the devil as ridiculous, but is that the Hollywood version? And what I'm trying to do with Dead of Night is to explore, what is it when we open ourselves to these dark inhumans, as we call them in the scientific vernacular, and open ourselves to them and allow them into our lives? Do we gain power? Do we gain success or money or wealth or fame or whatever it is, you know, through them, and corrupt our own souls in the process? And what's the price for it? You know, we have pits, you know, of human sacrifice all through England. There are mounds filled with the bones of human sacrifice all through Mexico. You know, the Mayan cultures. Was it all just in their head, or is there something to it? That's a question I've always had, and I wrote that movie to explore what that would be like in modern times. You know, what is a pagan god in modern times? So every film we do, you know, like you said, we're trying to find different avenues of the paranormal to explore. and what has drawn people through to them for millennia. I mean, paganism is thousands of years older than Christianity. Why? We find more and more that even the Oracle of Delphi, there was some poisonous stream there or something that ran through the rock, and the Oracle would soak up these fumes and get into some kind of trance state and predict the future. Now, that sounds very similar to the process of looking into the bowl and, going into some kind of trance state that Nostradamus or Edgar Cayce, the trance state. There's some similarities in all these things. So are we just going, oh, she's just getting high? I picked the wrong day to stop sniffing glue, getting high on the fumes, toxic fumes? Or, is there something, whether it's, the well of knowledge in the stars or, some part of our brain that gets turned on through a psychic experience, or is there more that we can tune into that's out there? So it all that fascinates me, because I always find, stuff, snake oil salesman, you come up there and go, oh, here's a tonic. Try to find that thing that asks the question of, what is this?
So when you take yourself and you step away from behind the camera and then you look at the paranormal field, because it does have a lot of keen interest in what you do for a living, and you take a look at what's around on social media, on the internet, and all of these paranormal groups out there, what is your reasoning behind why there is not much popularity or not much interest from the mainstream in getting involved with this topic on a more full-time basis?
People are interested in it. The mainstream is interested in it without even knowing they're interested in it. I'll just take vampires, for example. Everybody's interested in vampire movies. Everybody loves vampire movies. Everybody loves Dracula. Why? Well, you never age, you never die. You get rid of our fear of mortality. So while on one side we pull this stuff in and voraciously, on the other side, when it comes to the actual science, we blow it off. Because, I believe deep down, we don't want to know the answer. I mean, if we're all wrong, and this is all figments of our imagination by electromagnetic pulses in the brain that make us see stuff, and, it's our brain dying that makes us see the light, and all this stuff like scientists say, then what is the purpose of life? If we not go beyond this life, if there's nothing beyond it and it's just blackness, then nothing has any purpose. I mean, we don't have some greater purpose, and that's pretty depressing. So I think, for the most part, there's some part of us that doesn't want to know. Some of us are adventurous and daring, and and a lot of, I'm sure, our listeners out there who will listen to the show do want to know and seek this stuff out to give ourselves meaning to our lives, because, we leave something behind and we go on to the future. What we do in this life, echoes in the next. All that stuff gives our life purpose and meaning. And I think when people ridicule this stuff or don't or go against it, either they don't have much imagination and they're stuck, in I can only look at what's in front of me, and can't see beyond that, or they're afraid of the answer. We talked about one time, if the government knows there are aliens, it's the last thing they're going to do is let us know, because it could be the end of religion. If we said if the Vatican knows, they wouldn't let us know, because what would happen if we don't have the rule of law, countries to be loyal to, and religion to say, you better be good in this life because you're going to pay for it in the next. If we don't have that, the entire structure of civilization falls apart. They wrote about it, papers on it at the Pentagon. What would happen if the flying saucers are really aliens? So, there's this need not to know to push back against it.
I'm glad you brought that up because I recently wrote a blog on our website, spacedoutradio.com, in regards to that same topic about disclosure. And I strictly believe, and I firmly believe, that we have so many people saying, oh, the public is ready to know the truth, we need to find out if disclosure is true or not, the government needs to tell us the secrets we need to know. I don't think, as much as the population may believe in extraterrestrials, I really don't believe that the public would be ready for any sort of disclosure on the extraterrestrial level. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. And the reason why is, like you said, I really don't think between the government and religion, and we're not slamming religion because I know there's someone who's going to start questioning me on that. This isn't a slam against religion. But when you combine the two, it gets very dangerous because of the lies and the secrets that they hold. And a lot of people are not going to know how to handle that when the truth comes out. We're going to see, I honestly believe we could see an extremely, not violent, but like a mild form of anarchy start right off the bat.
Absolutely. And look, there are a lot of people that have absolute faith, and I don't think the existence of alien disproves the existence of God, because someone had to create the aliens too. You know, so if you have faith, I don't think it one disavows the other. But there are going to be a lot of people that are of, I don't want to say less faith or questionable faith or have questions. You know, we always see the priest in the movie that questions, you know, has questions himself sometimes about what God does and why and the suffering on our planet. There are going to be people that are going to go, well, if there are aliens, there is no God. And those people, when you have, well, then what's the meaning of anything? And, you know, once you don't see the Ten Commandments or the teachings of Jesus as a rule to live by anymore, because you lost your faith because there are aliens and people are saying God is an alien, which I think is ridiculous. You can have God and aliens.
But hold on, Ian. Hold on 1 second here. When you're looking at the Bible, though, a lot of religious people believe that aliens, or what we construe as aliens, are fallen spirits that have turned to demons to turn us to the dark side.
Well, that's because, I mean, in every religion we have the Satan story. See, look, this is my personal interpretation. Whether you're talking about Prometheus or Icarus or whatever you're talking about, from the Hindu text to the ancient Sumerian text, and what you're talking about is the same story. Men were made by aliens or gods or God, and in their image, and were put into an idyllic situation where we were lived by gods or this alien law, and we were basically naked, sheep. Not the right word, but we followed blindly, completely, devotedly with love, if you want, and we didn't have free choice. Now along comes Satan, or a faction of the aliens, who says, what we're doing, basically, he looked at us not as content people in the light of God, but he looked at us as we were created to be slaves, and he gave us the fruit of the tree of knowledge, whatever that is, whether it's fire, whatever tools, knowledge about however you want to believe, and gave us free will. And I had a conversation about a devout evangelical Christian who I totally respect his opinion, but he said to me something that really rocked me. He goes, you're a liberal, you're an East Coast, elite liberal, Hollywood liberal, and worse, and you're in league with the devil. And I said, why am I in league with the devil? Because I'm a liberal and a Democrat. He said to me, and this really freaked me out, that I'm accepting original sin, that we are meant to live by God's law alone, with no question. That was the pact in the garden. And by accepting free will or liberalism, the freedom of choice, we are in league with the devil and damned to hell. He got that from his pastor. Now, while I respect his belief and admire it, I mean, that idea that Satan is evil, isn't it always the victor that writes the history? If Satan was defeated if Satan is an alien faction of our creators or our overlords, and he was defeated, then wouldn't it stand to reason that the people that defeated him and cast him down would tell us that he's evil? Don't follow him. You got to come back to us. And all that implications of all these questions that we feel are answered and are secure in our faith would rise up again if we found out that there are aliens and they told us that, oh, yes, Satan was a guy that gave you all this knowledge and wanted you to not be our slaves anymore, because the Anunnaki refer to us as slaves. So, I mean, the Bible refers to us living in the light of God. Who do you believe? That's your faith. But the questions that I'm raising here, and I'm not imposing them on anyone, I'm just saying that these questions of how we look at things from different texts are going to come into question, and that will break down the religious order of society, where religion admittedly causes conflict, but it also gives us order and keeps us on the straight and narrow path in a lot of ways. If that breaks down, and we are no longer countries, our loyalties are not to our country, but to our planet and our species, then the laws of the countries are no longer matter, and the rule of law falls apart. Maybe not everyone, but enough that we can have anarchy on this planet, and more people will die, and we'll create our own Armageddon just by knowing, because we are a destructive species, just by knowing that there are aliens out there. It's a really scary proposition. Just like if we knew there was no life after death, then, well, I hate my neighbor. Why not? Why can't I kill him? There's nothing after death anyway. I'm not going to pay a penalty. So, I'll just kill him.
Well, and
I'll just rob that bank because nothing matters.
And that's the reality. And that is literally the reality. Then all of a sudden you're going to get, okay, I'm going to play this very politically correct when I say this. Okay, you're going to get a lot of people who are absolutely wingnuts about their weaponry and their own personal armament, taking the law into their own hands, thinking, I don't want no deviled aliens coming around my place, and just starting shooting people. Right? It is going to happen.
My God, think of this. We already have enough racial conflict around the world, and it's heightened right now. But think about, we look different. Asians look different from white people, which look different from African Americans, right? Which look different from Latinos, right? We all look different. Now, we know that many species existed at the same time. That, if aliens come down in the Anunnaki text of Rio, that we were all experiments to see what was the best one, and we all are related but separate species because we're separate experiments to see, then who is the most powerful? The idea that we're all created in God's image is a unifying factor for all races on the planet. If that falls apart, I mean, you're talking race wars, I mean, there are nuts out there, that, and a lot of these nuts use religion as cover, So when all that falls apart, what happens to all of us? Yeah, we're all brothers on one planet, but who's the real species? I mean, you have, senators saying that, white people are the only ones that created, the only ones who made any kind of contribution to society and settled the world. And I'm listening to that on TV, and I'm going, what?
It happens. It totally happens.
Yeah. So, I mean, careful what you wish for, because the more we learn, if our and our listeners are right about what this all is and what it all means, the consequences of this screwed up species that we are, belligerent, screwed up, in so many ways species, the result of us knowing could be horrific. We'll bring about we might bring about our own Armageddon in the Bible, because of it. That's the scary thing.
I fully agree. I absolutely fully agree. And one of those things that I am very, very sure about, although it is personal opinion, and I will reference it is personal opinion, is how everybody will react. Because here's the thing, if people really wanted the whole disclosure movement in, it's out there. There are countries that have already disclosed. Yet we don't want to accept that because it hasn't come from one of the big four. The big four being the United States, Russia, Britain, or China. But there's still going to be people that are going to say, I got to see it with my own eyes. Until they open the doors to, Hangar 18 and you see the spaceship that they captured and the dead alien bodies, there are a lot of people that are still going to say it's bull, because the government has some red flag, conspiracy about why they're releasing this now. They want anarchy or whatever it is. It's still going to, until that spaceship lands in the middle of New York or, St. Louis, or L.A., it's not going to be real to people. Our idea, look, Jefferson's Bible took out all the fanatical mysticism, fantastical mysticism of the Bible, all the magic, and just left Jesus' words. So even if you don't believe, that Jesus' words are good words to live by, and is great philosophy, just on that level. If Jesus isn't God's son, or thought to be God's son by some people, his words are diminished in some people's eyes, and that's a scary thing, because whether you are a right-wing evangelical or a left-wing liberal, you still respect those words because it's one of our major religions. Whether you're an atheist or an agnostic or whatever, one thing we can all agree on: the Ten Commandments and the words of Jesus are good words to live by. And it's always that inkling in the back of our mind, no matter what you are, well, what happens if we do get judged? Or we go to different dimensions based on our, what if it's just negative and positive energies? The more bad things we do, we pile up our self-guilt, and especially in Catholicism guilt or Judaism guilt, you wind up piling negative energies, and that draws you to the next dimension, because we know there are dark matter out there, and there probably are other dimensions. They're finding out more and more if you read the science blogs, and it draws us to what the bad dimension, which could be a hell, and the more positive energy we have in ourselves draws us to a better place, a heaven. So even if you just don't believe, but you live by those words, you build positive and negative energies around you. I mean, aren't there psychics who read your aura and tell you have negative energy? I mean, I went to Chichen Itza and I took a rock from the altar, the sacrificial altar there, and I brought it home with me in my pocket. I dropped my mom off the beauty parlor, and the hairdresser stopped me, and she's like, God, you have such negative energy. And I'm realizing things aren't going well. She tells me, you got to get a glass of water and sleep with it by your bed every night, and the positive energy of the water will draw off the negative energy. You got to get rid of that rock, because I told her about it. She said, did you do something lately? And I said about the rock. It was on my mind. She said it because I saw this thing about taking the lava rocks from Hawaii, that could give you bring home a curse with you. So I slept with this glass of water, and every morning I had to pour it in the toilet and flush the water for 2 weeks and then get rid of the rock. And amazingly, it might be coincidence or whatever, but, a few months later, I sold my first movie.
So, well, it got made, Dr. Chopper. So did I throw a negative energy to myself by taking this rock where so many people were murdered, thousands of people from this altar at Chichen Itza? Is there something to it? So, I mean, even if you don't believe in God, there is enough scientific evidence, which is something I brought up in episode 50, to say that there is a basis for this stuff not being about God, if you want to be an atheist or an agnostic. But there's enough scientific evidence in theory right now to explain what heaven and hell is and how we have, good souls or bad souls. So a lot of people, when they find out that, there are aliens out there and disregard religion totally, it may be that religion and God, whether God controls the chemical reactions or it's a natural scientific reaction, that we are still damning ourselves. Something to think about for everyone that wants, if the aliens show up, don't just say, oh, well, throw out the baby with the bathwater and nothing matters anymore. It may not be true. So be careful what you wish for, again.
That's such a powerful statement, because here's one of the things that we talk about on this show, Ian, quite a bit, and I'm curious to get your opinion of that. A lot of people will say, I just want the experience. I don't care if it's good or bad. I just want the experience of seeing an alien or having an abduction experience or having a poltergeist experience or something along those lines of the paranormal. Maybe being chased by Dogman in the middle of a forest when you're 2 miles from your car. You know what I'm saying? It happens.
Yeah.
And how though, do we try, as people in this field, try to create the mainstream or teach the mainstream who are saying, prove it to me, prove it, that these experiences are real, and sometimes you don't want to just have an experience. You need to call out your experience and what you want, because you do have to be careful what you wish for when it comes to the entire paranormal umbrella.
Well, that's very true, because there is case after case study of people who have had, near-death or actual death experiences where they've seen the light of going to hell, and, whether it's a chemical reaction in the brain or you're actually seeing the light or going to hell, they are forever changed by those experiences. Seeing the ghosts and entities that I've seen, I've found them very comforting. But I'm weird. I wanted my parents to read me. Look, when The Exorcist came out, I was a little kid, and my parents wanted to take me to see Charlotte's Web. I'm started crying and screaming. I wanted to go see The Exorcist. I laughed all the way through it. So I'm weird. I have a different view than most people on this stuff. It doesn't scare me. It intrigues me. It interests me and inspires me. But for a lot of people, when you see this ghost, you have to be able to deal with the fact that this is a tormented spirit that did not walk into the light and did not go into heaven and is in terrible hurt. Now that opens the door to saying, what if I don't walk into the light? Am I going to be in purgatory for all eternity? Does the light come back? How many chances do you get to walk into the light? Is it always the door always open, or does it close? And then you start thinking, well, what about my mother I love so much? She died in a car accident. Does she even know she's dead? It happened so quick. Is she tormented and walking the earth? These are the things you have to be prepared when you say, I want to see these things. All that comes with it.
For sure. And in those same tones, though, we still have a lot of people, Ian, saying, I'm willing to take that chance. In order for me to know that people are getting anal probed, or people are getting attacked by Sasquatch, or people are getting molested by ghosts or whatever it may be in their own home. They just want that experience. It's a confirmation of them until it happens to them.
Well, even in that sentence, I could pick that apart. Because you're just talking generally. I know you know this stuff. But for the average listener, when you say, I get attacked by a ghost, it's not a ghost. That's a poltergeist or an inhuman. And, there are different reasons. I mean, we don't know exactly what makes a residual haunt something that's just like on a repeat loop that just walks by you all the time. There's scientific theories about it. Ley lines, electromagnetic cages, all this stuff. What separates a residual haunt from an intelligent haunt? Now, the intelligent haunt is what I encountered when I could have an actual conversation, and I got this woman's life story. Horrific life story through yes or no answers. About her imprisonment in West Virginia State Lunatic Asylum, or out Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, whatever you want to call it, because her husband fell in love with another woman, and her kid, because the kid was taken with the mother, all the father had to say, can't get a divorce. The only way to get a divorce is if you claim your wife is insane. And there's no trial. There's no doctor that says anything. They just take her, arrest her, and put her away in a mental institution with her kid. And they got tuberculosis there, and the kid died, and she died, and she's walking around looking for her kid for the past century. Now, that's horrific. But that encounter, as horrific as it is, in my mind, was a positive encounter because although I said to her, you got to find the light, walk to the light, you'll find your child. And I hope it helped her. But I'm not a psychic. I can't really help these people. I don't know how much they comprehend or whatever. But that intelligent haunt led me to believe there's life after death. Just make sure you go into the light, please. So then you have the poltergeist, which stays behind because it has some grudge or something, and it wants to mess with people. It's a trickster spirit, which is exactly what the movie was. And these trickster spirits and inhumans are really, really bad. They're the ones that scratch you and attack you and do all these things. So I hope that if you want to see this stuff, you see a residual haunt or you see an intelligent haunt. I really hope none of you walk into a poltergeist or an inhuman. Because just today, Pope Francis, I said at the beginning of the show, Pope Francis said he's bringing in more exorcists. There's more demonic possession in this world than at any other time in history. So he's recruiting more exorcists, which is a scary kind of thought. Because in humans, their thing is to possess you because they've never been human. Now, how does that translate to scientific? We have different dimensions. And let's say that bad dimension, that hell dimension where we're attracted by negative energy, right, can move through our dimension. Like our dimensions, as they travel through space and going through, these galaxies are moving around, these dimensions swirl around the galaxies, and sometimes they cross through, and something can get in. Or you could draw it in some way, which we don't understand yet. Like you being angry about something can draw something negative to you. And once that happens, or when you play with a Ouija board, you create certain energies that allow this thing to come through. Some people say it's mirrors. Some people say it's running water by limestone opens, near a ley line, opens the door. That there's a doorway there between the dimensions. So this thing that was never human comes in, and it's pure energy, and passes into your body and takes control of it. That's a possession. It may not be a satanic demon. We don't know. I mean, that's what the Bible tells us. But, science has other theories. Of course, that's up to your faith. But, I mean, when you ask to see these things, when you ask to get an alien probe and you get something under your skin that, can cause you cancer when you take it out, as many cases have been, be careful what you wish for. I always say that. People are very brave until it happens, I'm a smoker. I say to myself, there's life after death. I have a girlfriend, but I'm not married. I don't have kids. So I say to myself, it's okay with me. I enjoy smoking. It keeps my tension away because it's a very tense business. I'm good with it. Some other people are smoking. You have responsibilities, families, children. People depend on them, and it could be, giving yourself cancer and leading to your death. So when you do something, you have to know the possible consequences. Just like when you go for an operation, they say, yeah, it's very safe, but the putting you under anesthesia could, in some cases, kill you, and you have to sign the release, right? So, we all say we want things, but sometimes when we get them, it's not what we think they are. So, all I can say is, for the experiences I've had, is do your homework and be prepared to know what you're dealing with.
If you had your choice, because I know you've dealt with the paranormal, I don't think you've dealt extraterrestrial or cryptid. Which one would you deal with?
Cryptozoology, to me, is a question of can things that we, in this modern age of cities and stuff, can they survive? Well, my God. I mean, first off, the whole basis of evolution is mutant and survival of the fittest. So at some point, something's going to mutate. I mean, so there's that. And if that thing can survive, it's going to continue. So cryptozoology, when you look at the vast expanses where humans are not, I mean, just look at the Pacific Northwest, the amount of trees and foliage, or the Amazon basin. I mean, there's so much green there that the idea that we know everything that's there is ridiculous, because we find new species all the time. So, I mean, the possibility of a cryptid, absolutely. I can believe in that. But when we're talking about aliens, yes, I believe in aliens. I believe that there's life out there. It just has to be. Whether they got here or not, I'm open. I don't disbelieve it, and I don't 100% believe it either. But I'm open to it, and I believe people are seeing something when they see Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster. It's been going on for thousands of years, just like paganism. There has to be something to it because it went on for thousands of years longer than Christianity. Has to be something to it. But when it comes to the paranormal and ghosts and these entities and these inhumans or demonics, whatever you want to call it, it goes to who we are, and we are all going to die. And the biggest question is, what happens next? So there's nothing more important to me for my evolution as a human being and my purpose in this life than to understand what these entities are. For me, that's the greatest question. Why are we here? What's our purpose? One time for me, my greatest purpose was to be famous and to be immortal and to leave something behind that my name will be remembered and not forgotten, because there's a belief that we all die two deaths. The first death is when we're physical death, and the second death is when the last person that remembers us dies and we're forgotten. The idea that you're leaving a movie behind or a book behind or something popular that will live beyond you, it always says you're here. But then I realized, as I became more involved in the paranormal, that that's petty. I think there's some bigger thing to us. We're moving on to something else. Whether it's just another life in another form or whatever, there's something beyond this life. And finding out as much as I can about it and how I can prepare for it And what that is, I don't think there's anything more important, because we're all going to lose our parents. We're all going to lose our friends, especially as we get older. We're going to lose people we love and respect, and family. And, you want to know they're okay, that maybe there's a chance we'll see them again. I don't think there's anything more important than that.
We only have about 2 minutes left with you tonight, Ian. This show flew by. Absolutely flew by.
Yeah.
As they normally do. So I would like it if you took the next minute or so just to tell everyone about Unhitched and what it's all about, because in 2 weeks we're going to get into it pretty heavy.
Yes. Unhinged is my new movie. It's the biggest movie we've done so far. It's a big-budget horror movie starring Mickey Rourke, directed by Mark Atkins, and it's the first from my new production company that we reformed after I was wiped out during Hurricane Sandy, so I'm very excited. We've been working towards this for a long time. I'm very proud of the fact, like I said before, that Mickey, they're looking for a horror movie to do since Angel Heart, and he's picked this one. And we are really excited to have him on board. And it just so happens it's the 30th anniversary of Angel Heart. And the story, is about a psychiatrist who doesn't believe in God. He's an atheist, and he believes in science alone. And we have a schizophrenic patient that's catatonic. She escapes, and there's, whether it's a traumatic event that caused the catatonia or something else supernatural, which I won't get into, leads everyone to question their faith and what is faith. And once you have faith, what will you do to destroy evil? And is it all in the patient's head, or is it real? And that's the question of the movie. And I love stuff like that, because and we all are jazzed about it, because it plays on the 10 little Indian scenario of who's the killer. Oh, there's 10 people here. One of them's got to be the killer. Well, what if it's not one of the 10 people in the room? Something else. Then what do you do? So we're playing on a lot of classic tropes and turning them on their head and getting to the point of scaring the living daylights out of you.
Excellent.
That's what this movie is most about. Having you all talk to so many times, and on Facebook and wherever I can connect with my fans as much as possible. I feel it's my responsibility to make sure if you come see my movie that I am going to scare the living daylights out of you. If I do that, I've done my job.
Awesome. And on that note, my friend, I got to wrap it up. I apologize. You hold on for a couple seconds.
No problem.
I'm going to wrap this thing up. If you're listening in on the terrestrial side of Spaced Out Radio, you hear Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy, rocking us out of tonight's episode. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Tomorrow night on the program, Greg Bishop joins us. We're talking government disinformation, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time for 3 hours of Spaced Out Radio. Make sure you check us out on our website, spacedoutradio.com. Become a space traveler for $5 a month, and don't forget, head on over to patreon.com to become a Spaced Out Radio patron. Remember, you can hear our archives on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune in, iTunes, radioguide.fm, TalkStream Live, and on Stitcher. We are everywhere. But most importantly, my friends, I need all of you to tell a friend. Tell a friend what we're all about. Tell a friend how much fun we have doing this show. Mr. Bumblefoot, take us home. Have a good one. Good night.